Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music. Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music. I'm Ann Tracy. We're here with Podcast Edition, and I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
Yes, and we're super excited. We have half of Loopline with us.
Hi, yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, Luke Sliz, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm going to say we this whole time, thinking that Paul was going to be here, but I and he are both very thankful and appreciative that you had us on. So thank you.
Right. Yes. We're sad that Paul can't make it, but we'll just talk about him.
That sounds perfect. That's what I do with most of my free time anyway. So
I was gonna say that's how we plan at our family reunions. You can't show up. Yeah. You're gonna be on the table anyway.
Yeah, focus, exactly.
So fun to talk to you. And I'm not sure. Tell us a little bit about the band to start, because that's always a good start.
Okay, yeah. So it's myself and Paul. There's only two of us. My wife sings sometimes because we cannot hit those high notes like we used to anymore. But we both live in separate states. We've been living in separate places for 5 or 6 years now. So we make music remotely, and we send files back and forth, and we collaborate online. And I think that's a lot more common now than when we first started. Because we started about doing it almost 10 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, and it took us a long time to figure out like how to actually make that work. But now we're doing it, and after a couple of years of kind of figuring out how to make it work in a way that we can actually finish things on a regular basis and put things out, I think we're ready to finally come back and, make some music again.
You should have written the book exactly 1 year ago, and you could have been a bestseller by April.
I should, yeah. I mean, come on. If only I knew this was going to happen, then.
No, not at all. But it's kind of nice that you've got to jump on it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, we lucked out in a lot of strange ways. There was kind of, I hate to say it, but being at home was another inspiration for getting back in writing more music and recording more, and gave us a chance to actually figure out what we wanted to sound like after a couple of years of not really focusing on music. So. Yeah, we're making the best of a bad situation, I guess.
Nice. Because you folks met in Minnesota. Am I correct?
Yep, that's right.
And Paul is still in Minnesota, Minneapolis?
Yep, he's in Minneapolis. We both grew up in Rochester, Minnesota. We went to the same high school. We didn't really know each other in high school, but we had mutual friends. And then in college, we kind of connected and realized we had the exact same musical tastes, very similar in many ways beyond music. And when we started making music together, we both kind of realized that we're never going to find a better collaborator than this other guy. So when I moved away to Japan, we decided to just try to keep making music together and see if we can make it work. And it kind of worked out for us.
I did not realize the Japan connection, because you're in Ann Arbor now?
No, I'm in Ann Arbor, yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, I'm thinking about your music and I'm thinking Japan, it's funny because I don't always ask kind of whatever your influences, but you guys have a really unique sound.
Oh, thank you.
So,
there's definitely a subtle Japanese influence, I think. And I listen to a lot of Japanese music. So I don't know how obvious that is to anyone, but that's definitely in there.
Well, once you said it, I was like, oh, okay. That makes sense.
Sure, yeah. It also shows up in like the lyrics a lot. Like we sing a lot about distance, which that might just be a coincidence, but it's probably informed by our situation.
Well, it's definitely because I have some particular songs that I want to ask you about, but I don't want to dive right into something like that right away. I mean, because the sound is great. So what were your influences starting out? What are your influences now? Because you are
we're kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
Well, when we first started, the big things were the Beach Boys on the early Weezer records. Paul and I were really into vocal harmonies, and we still are, which is kind of a burden because we're not the strongest singers, and the thing we care about the most is like these elaborate vocal harmonies. So we just obsess over them until they're perfect. So what we used to say in the beginning was that we would kind of like just take some other band and add Beach Boys harmonies to it, and that's what we were trying to sound like. And it would be different from song to song. So sometimes it'd be like, I don't know, the Pixies plus the Beach Boys, or the Clash plus the Beach Boys. And now there's a lot more electronic influence, which I don't think was as obvious in the start. With the first album that we made, we wanted every song to flow together, and we wanted to have like these electronic interludes that acted as a segue between every song. And now those interludes are kind of becoming more of the actual full-length songs. So there's a lot more of like a synth-based sound that we're working on at the moment.
I like that. Well, I am going to kind of dive in just a little bit because The Small Hours is a song that you've put out recently.
Mhm,
And
yep.
I have to say, when I listened to it, I'm a fan of noise. I'm a fan of ambient. I'm a fan of sort of, but I listened and I was like, this sounds like kind of an electronica version of Superstar by the Carpenters.
That sounds spot on to me.
Yeah.
Now that you say it.
Yeah. I mean, that just comes out of, it was, when you smell something and it takes you back to a certain, I heard that and it took me back to listening to that when I was a little kid.
Oh, that's awesome. That makes me so happy that you said that.
Yeah.
We're kind of big fans of a little bit more modern production, but a lot more vintage, older bands. So I'm happy that you heard that, because what I thought the song sounded like, no one else ever thinks the song sounds like. I thought this was like a normal pop song that would fit in with pretty much any other slightly off-center pop song nowadays, but no, obviously that's not the case. I've learned now.
No, but it's great. I mean, as I said, I just like it because it just really takes me back to, and so many of your songs really just kind of take me back to, and I'm a product of the 70s. So it's a lot of that really kind of call back to some of that kind of music, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But as you say, a modern version of it.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. That makes me really happy that someone else has picked up on that. But yeah, we listen to a lot of 60s, a lot of 70s, like psychedelic and just straight up AM radio, rock and pop. So it's only recently that I think you could hear more modern influences, especially with the newer songs that will be coming out over the next year.
Yeah, well, in some ways, I think the modern sound is kind of catching up with you.
That's
Maybe
true.
it's the addition of the synth, but I do think that there's things are starting to converge a little bit like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think one of my theories is that pop music always takes like cool rock music or whatever cool alternative music was from like 10 years ago, and then they make the pop version of it. So I think in a lot of the popular like pop songs that you hear nowadays, you can hear like Animal Collective and Dirty Projectors and bands from like 10 years ago that all of a sudden have a place in that world. And some of them are like even writing songs for those types of people now, which I think is really interesting. So yeah, I think there's definitely
It
convergence happening there.
It is, and it's interesting how you say that, because as I said, I'm a big fan of noise. So I've seen a lot of more music under somebody's basement in the last 10 years than you might think, given that I'm not 18 years old.
That's the best place to hear music.
It is the best place to hear music. It's sometimes I show up and they're like, somebody's mom's here, and I'm like, oh no, my kids are way older. Just move over. But what it is funny how things that I listened to 10 years ago there, some of the looping, some of the other things, I'm like, oh, I think you're spot on. It takes a few years and then all of a sudden it, you know.
Definitely. If you listen to like pop music nowadays and you played it for someone in the 60s, maybe not the 70s, but they would just be like, they would be totally confused. Like, how could this be popular music? It's nonsense. It's like avant-garde type of music, but nowadays it's just pop music.
Yeah. But the other thing that I like about summer music is you have an interest in holidays, from ghost signs to the Christmas music. So tell me a little bit about that.
That's really weird, a really weird origin story. But the way that started was when Paul and I were in college, one of our friends asked us, I don't know why they even asked us in the first place, was to come up with the story for a radio play drama that they were going to host. And we came up with this ridiculous story about Santa Claus fighting aliens, and we were going to write all these songs for it. And then the story and the script never actually got written, but we did start writing songs that would eventually soundtrack this sci-fi blockbuster of a movie that could never possibly get made. So even though some of the songs, they just sound like strange, maybe just totally run-of-the-mill Christmas songs, they all have a place in this really weird story. So we started doing one and trying to release it every year. which is really weird because I think there are a lot of people that listen to those songs and then they have no idea about the other type of music that we make. And maybe they just have no interest in that other type of it, that other music, which I think is pretty common. But we've kind of like found our way, our place in this weird little Christmas music world that exists online. There's like a very vibrant community of people that love Christmas music, and it's really cool to be a part of it.
Well, that's funny because well, and of course it's very seasonal for us to talk about right now.
Yeah, of course.
I never thought about that there is a community of people who like Christmas. I mean, I've got a kid who could lead the pack starting at about October 14th. She could lead the Christmas Carol Pact. But yeah, but your music is, I mean, it is not remotely traditional Christmas music.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. Some of the older songs, we kind of have a split between like 50s and 60s rock type sounding Christmas songs, which I think are kind of traditional, at least in the sense of that they're like rock and guitar, bass, drums, and bass-based music. And then we have this other set, which is more the synth-based stuff. And the way we separate it in our minds is in this Christmas movie that we came up with, there was going to be like a Beatles type of band, which is a very popular band. And they would have like their songs that existed in the world of the movie. And those would be like the 50s and 60s rock type of songs. And then there'd be like the songs that push the story forward that like the characters sing, like a Disney type of movie. And those would be like the weird modern synth-based type of songs. So there's definitely a weird mix of like traditional and very untraditional things going on, which I think is probably confusing for a lot of people, especially if they only listen to those songs once a year. And then the next year, there's like a song that sounds totally different than the one that came before. But that's just the way it goes, I guess.
So what's holding you back from doing the whole Christmas rock opera? I mean, I think that'd be fascinating.
Oh yeah, I mean, personally, I think it's like the best artistic idea I've ever come up with in my entire life. So I would love for it to happen. And Paul even works like in the movie business, not like in Hollywood or anything. Because I feel like there's a very small chance that we could like write the script and then somehow it would get made. Probably not on the scale that it deserved to be made, but like it could be possible that it could become a reality one day. I don't know, if we finish enough songs and then we decide we actually have time to write a script, it could happen. Time is the big thing. There's never enough time.
Did you guys write the video for Ghost Signs? Did you do anything for that video too?
Yeah, so that was kind of Paul's baby. I don't want to discredit anyone else who helped on it, but he directed it, he edited it, did the sound design. He might have written the script. I think he wrote the script with someone who was also the cinematographer on it. So I couldn't be a part of it because I live in a different place, unfortunately. But he did that with a lot of the Minneapolis film community that he's involved with. So yeah, I know he was really proud of that.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'll pass it along to him. I'm sure he would appreciate that. We've done a few music videos in the past, and he is usually the only one in them because I'm never around. But hopefully we'll be able to do more once life returns to normal. And now that we're actually living close, usually like we're living on the other side of the planet or on the other side of the country, this is the closest we've ever lived together in like 4 or 5 years. So hopefully we can actually do more music video stuff actually together.
Yeah, I like the video for Snowdrifts, but I like that Snowdrifts feels like one of the other Christmas songs, but I like that for this year.
Oh yeah, definitely. Strangely, a lot of the themes in our music are really fitting for things that are going on this year. The lyrics for the Small Hours, I think I wrote those last December because we were really hoping to finish it then, and it just didn't happen. But then now it's coming out this year, and all the lyrics are about being separated from someone that you care about, and this very strangely fitting. That just seems to happen a lot for us.
Well, just kind of get to the point of this is a good time for this sort of music. I mean, with the Snowdrifts, I just like that calm. People wistful for the calmness among the chaos.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's probably just like our default setting, Paul and I, with everything that goes on in our lives. Snowdrifts is a really interesting song. That was a song that Paul wrote, and my wife sings on it with him. and I did some of the music to accompany it. And I remember us being really happy with that song. And then because it sounds so different than all of our other songs, it was really hard to get people to actually listen to it and give it a chance. So I'm glad. I think that it's kind of found a small audience though, because you can look online, you can see your stats, who's listening to what streaming service, and it's really interesting to see who listens to that song versus who listens to the other songs that are up on like on our Spotify profile.
That's funny. It would be interesting to know how they found you with that song.
Yeah.
Then I mean,
definitely, you can see like on Bandcamp, if you're familiar with that website, it tells you like who comes to your site and where they come from, and it's updated daily. So it doesn't tell you like who exactly listens to what, but you can kind of piece together where they're coming from and what they're listening to. It's really easy to obsess over those things, especially when you're not a touring act like we are. So I'm always kind of trying to figure out like, how are these people finding us and how can we get more people to find us just by using these online tools?
now you have a plan to do a song a month for 2021. Tell us about that and what made you decide we're gonna do it.
That's something. It's something that we've wanted to do for a few years now, and because we didn't actually release anything for a few years, the last full-length thing that we released, I think, was in 2016. It might have been 2017, and it was just an EP. And then life kind of got in the way, and we couldn't really record as much as we wanted to, and we couldn't really focus on music. And now that we have time again, we've found ourselves with like this huge bank of songs, some of that go back 4 or 5 years, and they're all in various stages of the recording process. And we realized that now we actually have the tools and the time to actually release songs on a regular basis. Since we don't tour, and since we can't really play live anywhere because we're in separate places, we kind of figured the only way we could actually get on people's radar and stay on them is if we were consistently putting out music, which I think is something that pretty much every band has to do nowadays. So I guess we're just following in the footsteps of everyone else. But now that we can actually do that, we're going to try to do it and see how it goes, which people that know us probably think we have no chance of doing it because we work extremely slowly and we're ridiculous OCD perfectionists about the way things sound. But we're going to try to push ourselves and not be so hard on ourselves and actually try to get music out there because we just, at this point, want people to hear it and just see what happens from there.
Since you are such perfectionists, how are you going to go about selecting which songs in your bank of songs that are going to get out there?
We've had many intense, long discussions about that. We're in a really weird spot, and I think this is a spot that a lot of artists find themselves in. It's like we have all these songs that we really like, that are some of them are 4 or 5 years old, and then we have these new songs that are 3 months or 6 months old that we think are just as good or even better or probably better, but we don't know if they're better or if we just like them because they're new. So we have this ridiculous challenge, like, is this something that we actually do like, or we're just excited about it because we wrote it a month ago and the song 5 years old, is just as interesting, and we just don't think it is because we've heard it for 5 years. So we have this list. We kind of have a mix of older songs that we don't want to just throw out and never record, and a mix of like newer songs that we think, let's just get this done now, or else 5 years from now, we're going to be tired of this song and forget that we ever loved it in the first place. So the main goal is to kind of put out the songs like in a progression that they'll make sense to people that hear them. Because we have some like garage rock type of songs, and then some songs that are very synth-based, or maybe they just have like orchestra type of instruments. So we release like something like The Small Hours followed by just like a straight up punk rock song, that's not going to make sense to anyone. But if we can like have like a punk rock song and then a rock song with a little more synthesizer in it, and then one maybe that's all synthesizer, then maybe it'll make sense to the person who's following along with us. That's the hope anyway. We'll see if that actually happens.
It's like wine tasting.
Totally. It's kind of like making a playlist too. I'm making playlists lately, thinking about playlists and mixtapes and how they have to flow perfectly. So even though like these songs aren't on an album, I still want them to flow like an album, which is another thing that kind of, like Paul and I love albums. Our first album is concept album. every song flows together. There's like no, I think there's like 1 or 2 breaks in between the separate acts of the concept. So it's kind of disappointing to us that the reality of our situation is we can't release a big album because we'll spend 5 years on it and then it'll be out there and then a week later everyone will be done with it. So hopefully we're trying to have the best of both worlds where we can have these singles that kind of, they'll be different, but they'll make sense in the end. And then maybe a couple of years from now, they can be collected, or some of them can be collected onto an album that will also make sense. And maybe people will be interested and aware of us by then, if we've been keeping to the schedule that we've set up for ourselves.
Well, that sounds like a natural reward for yourself and for the fans to say, if we nail this, if we do this every month.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely motivating. I think now that we've started, the small hours is kind of like the unofficial start to it, because the next one will be like this one has the Christmas holiday connotation, and the next one will just be like its own thing. So I feel like it'll be the official start then, and that'll be like more rock and roll based, the next song. So I'm really hoping that once we get one out, then we'll feel that pressure to not stop working on them, to not miss a song the next month. And we definitely won't for the first few months, because we have some songs banked and they're ready to go, and we have a nice runway to actually work on the ones that aren't done yet and get them done. So as long as the world can hold together for a few more months, we should be able to actually make it through the year and put things out every month.
Would this be something that you could continue on? Or, I mean, I have no understanding of how long it takes you to make songs when you're not so close together. Could you possibly, if you get a great response and whatever, would you think about doing it another year, or is that crazy town for you?
I don't think it's crazy town. In my ideal world, we could just do this forever and there would always be people listening. I guess it's just a matter of Paul and I having the time to actually do it, which I don't see changing anytime soon. So ideally, yeah, we could just keep on doing this until we're out of ideas and it's just not fun for us to do anymore, which I can't see happening because we've been doing it for so long and it feels the same. It's as rewarding to do as it was 10 years ago when we were playing together in basements for people. So hopefully it can continue. I kind of hope that the industry changes in such a way that albums could be something that people get excited about again. So then we could take breaks and release like actual albums. But I really can't complain if I have the opportunity to be able to make music in any type of form and to put it out for any amount of people at all to listen to, then that just makes me happy. So yeah, I could do it forever. I would like to think Paul would say the same thing, but I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Well, he's not here. We'll just do it.
Yeah. I forgot. But you can just say whatever you want. So yeah, Paul can't wait to do this until he's old. And
he just texted me.
Oh yeah, exactly. We're gonna retire together and like join our own retirement community. We could become roommates and just do this to our 90s.
Forever. Nice. It seems like you are kind of on a path to merging kind of how a lot of people consume music now, which is, a lot of people are putting stuff out one at a time. Mm-hmm. And then there are a lot of people who are focusing on an album too, so that you could kind of build up the momentum one at a time and get some of that heavy lift done.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't know. I think any band that is just starting, any band who isn't like on like a medium tier type of level or well known like in their community, you just have no choice but to put out singles. But I can't imagine, maybe if you're coming of age right now, I'm sure those people, maybe the concept of an album sounds strange to them, but I would imagine that a lot of people nowadays still want to write and create albums, even if it's something that they know isn't as commercially viable as just creating singles that come out month by month. But I don't know, the idea of albums still interests me, and it probably always will, I would imagine, even if it's not something that everyone's interested in. Even I know everyone says that singles are the way to go and that the album, I know a lot of people argue that like the album is dead, but I don't think it's really dead. And I think it still has its place and it's still going to be that way for a long time, I would imagine.
I would think so. And I would think, as we've already sort of talked a little bit about, you will also have the skills and the experience to make it a soundtrack. I mean, to create a film about it.
That's true. Yeah, that's kind of weird that we have so many weird opportunities and privileges that Paul and I have that let us do these things. Like my wife is a graphic designer; she does all of her art, and Paul has movie contacts that allow us to make music videos. So even though like we have no budget and like no label backing or anything, we can kind of appear like a normal band that has money to pay for these types of things. So yeah, that could very well happen if we never made an album, but we somehow made this movie and created this soundtrack. I would be just as happy with that.
I think that would be fantastic because, well, and it's funny because I think, a lot of normal bands don't have the money for any of the,
Oh yeah, that's just no matter who you are, no matter how successful you are. I'm amazed at how many bands there are that I love who are like well-known bands that still have to have day jobs and they still can't focus on music all the time because that's just the way of the world. So I mean, I would never complain about my situation because I just have the chance to make music in some capacity, which is all I ever wanted. So yeah, I would love to be able to make that movie happen. I would love to even just like write the songs, have someone else sing them. Like the actual I have the idea of like making that movie and then having like the cast version of the songs. Like that would be amazing to me to actually exist someday.
I think now is, not to talk you into it, but heck, why not? Now is a good time. A lot of people have time. It's very funny because a lot of people have time and a lot of people don't.
True. Yep.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of in between right now.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And I think part of it because you all are busy, and part of it is making it that priority, and you can make it the highest priority ever, but there are just some things that trump that, but
yeah, definitely. It's really, it's kind of weird. Like, I think music will always, like making music will always have a place in my life. Like if I don't make music, for a day, but I kind of feel like the day was wasted, which is a ridiculous way to feel, but that's just how it is sometimes. So I always try to make time for it, even if it's like a half an hour of just like fiddling with the arrangement of a song, which happens a lot. It's a lot of fiddling with arrangements that end up getting deleted and replaced the next day. So yeah, hopefully things will just like allow that, things will be able to continue in that way. And then eventually something will get built out of that process, a very slow moving process.
But it's clearly a calling for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. At least personally, it's very intrinsically pleasing. Like nothing really makes me happier than just sitting down and writing something. Like the feel like when you write it, like when you create the demo of a song and then it's finished, that's like the best feeling in the world. Because then everything after that is just kind of feels a little more like work. So you have to re-record everything, and then you have to figure out how to get people to listen to it, and then you have to, if you're really bold, but listen to their reactions and see how they actually feel about it. But yeah, that moment when you're actually like creating the demo and just you're in your own little world with the song, that's like the best for me.
That's fantastic. And now you've kind of begged the question, do you interact with fans? How do you handle that?
Oh yeah, definitely. It used to be, even in like the past 5 years, though the ability to do that has changed so much. Like there's a way to get your music like on the blogs now or on the playlists is to use websites like Submit Hub, or I think there's similar ones with the weird names that I can't recall. But you pay a very small fee. The song gets pushed out onto tons of bloggers and tons of playlisters, and then they listen to it and they tell you their thoughts and whether they want to like include it on their site or not. So if you want your music to get out there and you don't have like major label marketing or any type of label marketing and promotion, then you pretty much have to send it to these people. And you could just ignore all their feedback if you want to, but that seems kind of like a waste. So now I've been reading all this crazy subjective feedback. But from the same song, you'll hear like this song is too pop, and then the next person will say this song is too weird. And it's understandable because music is subjective, but it's really frustrating to deal with sometimes. 5 years ago, if you were just sending music to blogs by yourself, either like the blogger would like the song and they would put it up, or they wouldn't like it and they would just ignore your email and you wouldn't have to hear what they thought about it, which is kind of nice because then you just got the impression that everyone loves my music.
Or they're too busy.
Yeah, exactly. You can just decide what you want, what the story is. But now you hear in great detail what the story is and why someone doesn't want to listen to it. But I understand why people don't like everything I make, because that's just the way the world works. And if you're creating something and putting it out there, you're inviting criticism. And if you can handle that, then I don't know. I guess you can just ignore all the criticism, and I'm sure people do that. And I'm very happy that some people are able to do that. But I guess I'm too interested in knowing what people think, even if they don't like it. I want to know why.
Well, you're good. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, after reading stuff, does that affect how you go about a next song or something that you're working on? Or do you just like, nope, this is the sound or feel I'm going for? Sure. I would have yeah,
it kind of, that's the argument. The
Yeah.
inner argument. I think it's going to affect things a little bit. On a lot of those sites, like when you do like the payment method, like the people that are listening, they have to rate something. So I kind of feel like a lot of them will they pick out maybe the same things, or they might say the same types of comments every time, unless you're hearing like the same thing about your song and everyone's saying the same thing. Then I try not to take it too personally, and we try not to let it dictate what we do too much. But yeah, it definitely makes us think about like our production choices sometimes. Like we've been hearing a lot of comments about the vocal processing on the small hours, which Paul and I both thought was very subtle. And just like they sounded like normal vocals with a little bit of distortion and some delay and reverb on them. And we're hearing all kinds of descriptions like, I don't know about the vocoder on the vocals, or I really like the flange on the vocals. Like people don't know what the effect is, so they just call it whatever they want. And then they say that they like it or they don't. So that maybe we're going to use this as an opportunity to like think about how other people might perceive the music, but it might not really change the music that much. We'll see.
That's some tough skin. I mean, the only thing I can compare it to is I sold a house a couple years ago, and now if somebody doesn't like your house, it's the same thing. They tell you why. And 2 words for most of those people,
Yeah.
And this is a house that I'm selling. This is not a child or a song I've written or anything, but I also think it's a lot of the songs and a lot of just art that I end up loving. I don't necessarily love my first experience with it. It's something that there's something about it that strikes me, that makes me think about it for a while, and then I'll come back to it. And then in the end.
Yeah, the opinion changes. That's kind of the flaw in the system with these submission types of platforms, because bloggers get hundreds, thousands of songs a day sometimes. So they're just trying to go through as many of these songs as possible. And I'm sure the ones that they want to post are the ones that hit them instantly. They're not really the ones that they have to sit with and think about for a while. So yeah, that probably is a big influence on the type of music that they actually put on their blog. You hear a lot of the time, you'll get comments like, I love this song. They'll rally off like a list of things that they like. And then at the very end, but I'm not going to post it on my blog. Sometimes because it's not a good fit. And then sometimes they just don't give a reason at all. So I think there's a lot of that. Does it hit me instantly? And do I think it's going to hit everyone that reads this blog or listens to this playlist? It's going to hit them instantly. And there's not really a place for like stranger songs or songs that you just have to sit with and listen to for a while. Like we submitted Ghost Signs, the song you mentioned before, we submitted that to people, and I kind of knew from the start that no one's going to post this anyway, because there's no blog for like weird, spooky Halloween soundtrack type of music with vocals that is also like a pop song in some weird way. So yeah, it's not a perfect system. But it's still interesting to hear like what people say about what you're doing. So
yeah, you gotta hit up like a Jeremy Messersmith. There's somebody who's got some strange stuff and loves Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. I looked all over the internet. Closest thing I could find would be like horror movie blogs, but they don't want to post like a horror song that has no context, that they have no context for. It just doesn't make sense.
And you might not want to make a horror video.
Right, yeah, exactly. Paul and I were saying that, like, if The Cure made like one of their goth albums today and they just had to send some random 8-minute goth song out to bloggers, like no one would care. No one would, people might think it's interesting, but no one's gonna post it on their blog, and then The Cure would just, they would have never existed in the in the greater culture.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a certain type of song that just doesn't quite work for.
No, well, and timing is everything.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. There's always that probably plays more of a role than anything else, because you could write the greatest song in the world, and if the right person doesn't hear it, then it's just not going to go anywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Especially now, when there's thousands and thousands of songs. I think the number of songs that gets uploaded to Spotify every day is like in like the at least 5 digits. I think it's just a ridiculously staggering number to even think about. So yeah.
Well, and it's funny, it's kind of life, you know, it's.
Oh yeah, but it's amazing. Like, even if this is something I always think about, is like, if you want to write songs and perform them for people, like, first you have to have the ability to play an instrument. Probably you have to, if you want to sing them, then you also have to have the ability to sing, which isn't something you can train and get better at it, but it's something that you're kind of born with. And then if you also have the ability, so you need the ability to play an instrument, ability to sing, ability then to write songs. Even having all of those things is an incredible chance of luck to have. So yeah, and then to actually have all those things and put your music out there and have someone else connect to it, that's on a whole nother level.
Yeah. Now take it to the other side. Have you ever had experience with some of these bloggers that you're talking about that you just think, oh, you just made my day?
Oh,
what's your best story in terms of, oh, I never thought of it? Or
when we released our first album, we sent it. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. It was an online magazine in Minneapolis. I think it was called L'Etoile, is a French name. I have no idea how to pronounce it.
L'Etoile, yeah.
Okay,
I have had articles, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I have a French minor. I should be able to.
Perfect, yeah. I have 4 years of Spanish and that's it. So, but yeah, we sent the album to them, and they wrote like the nicest thing that anyone's ever written about me in any facet of my life about the album. And it was just like, this person, even if no one else likes this album, this is like the album made for this person. It's their perfect album. So that's amazing that they liked it. They said the nicest things about it, all the influences that we have that people don't always hear. They heard it all. They included them all in like the review. It was just like the greatest feeling. And we had a couple reviews like that of that album, and also of the EP that came after it. So it was really super rewarding, just like to find the audience for those, and then for them to actually like say how much they liked it, and to tell other people how much they liked it. That's just an amazing feeling.
Nice.
And no matter any amount of negative feedback we get, that will always be like trumped by those positive reviews that happen. So yeah, that's
nice.
pretty great feeling.
That's awesome. Well, you said a lot of it just comes down to taste. It's so funny because taste. On Twitter, there's somebody we've talked to in the past just wrote something about just because you don't like art doesn't mean it's not good. I mean, you know, and that's just, you know, it's, if Heather and I went to a buffet, I can tell you right now, we would not have one thing similar on our plate at the end of the dinner. I mean, that's just the nature of human nature.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Life would be pretty boring if it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
Well, the same.
And it's a double-edged sword to have unique music and to have that ability to change and have you know, music that reaches different audience, as you said, like from garage punk to some of the synth stuff, to some of the you know, it's the Christmas in July.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is where I could hear the Beach Boys.
Oh yeah, that's very much a homage.
Yeah. Yeah, but when you allow yourself to get beyond the cookie cutter, that does make it more difficult to find the audience. But it means that the audience that finds you is really going to be passionate about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. The bands that I like the most, my favorite bands, they always change from album to album, and there's always people that are very upset about the changing sound. But I don't know why those bands I've always been drawn to those types of bands. And now that I've been making music for a while, I totally understand why they would change the sound. There are certain bands that I really love who have changed the sound, and it has upset me as a fan. But now I totally get it, because you get tired of having that same type of sound and you just want to change and do something fresh and exciting, like as an artist. So I would never, now I'm just kind of drawn to the idea of doing that and getting like some sort of reaction out of people. I don't want people to hate the music, but to them to react in it in some way, that means you're doing something right. That's what people always say. So,
well, the engagement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That kind of makes the transaction complete when you've got engagement from both,
For sure. If it's bland and boring and middle of the road and people they can't even work up enough emotion to write anything about it. Yeah, that'll be pretty brutal. I would imagine.
And I wrote music reviews. I occasionally still do, but I do this really instead. But I have often said, give me a band I love, or give me a train wreck. Don't give me something where, the next day I can't remember a darn thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
give me one or the other.
Yeah, when you're writing, I wrote album reviews when I was in high school for the Rochester Post Bulletin in the Teen Beat section. And I figured out pretty early that you have to find something that you have a strong reaction to, or else you're going to have nothing to write about that week. And it's just, no one wants that. The artist doesn't want that. You don't want that as someone who's creating something. Yeah, it's got to be something that people feel in some way.
Yeah. Although it's funny, sometimes I look at some of the super top of the charts and I think, I'm not their market.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. That's something I was trying to think about too. Like, who's the audience for this? How are they going to react? Why wouldn't this person like it? You can kind of figure it out if you find out a little more information about them. I try to keep up with what's going on in the pop world, just so I can be ready for how people might react to what we're doing. But clearly my senses are a little off, because I thought what we are doing wasn't that far off from a lot of things that are going on, but it's clearly not the case. The first playlist that the Small Hours got put on was it's like an exploratory, experimental type of playlist. So the description even says something like, for the explorative person, not actual songs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, the first song is Aphex Twin, and then Crystal Castles, and those are normal songs, and then it's a bunch of drone pieces, and then the Small Hours, which is very traditionally structured for the most part, and has a clear chorus. But this person, I thought, but then this person was no, it'd be the perfect fit for this weird, strange playlist.
Well, as you said, that's 10 years from now, that might be you're going to where the puck's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be fine with me. I mean, that made me more than happy that it was on that type of playlist, because we have written a lot of pop punk, alternative rock type of songs, and I've always wanted to try something different. And now we've written this song that's very different, and it's on this weird experimental playlist. So that's totally a success in my eyes.
Score. That's a score. That's absolutely a score. That's I might have to find that list now. That sounds up my alley. So that's
it's on there. It's on Spotify somewhere.
Okay.
That was a big learning curve. I was sending this song to the traditional blogs I would send it to, but then I realized, maybe I need to find a better potential home for this song, because it's not being heard the way that I hear it.
Well, and that is I mean, what's funny, one of my day job things is I do search engine optimization. And I was a librarian. It's there's the right audience. It's finding that audience, but I think it's hard when you're the artist and you have to do all of that too. I think that there's a lot of learning that happens. I think it's valuable, but I always, when I worked in a traditional library, I always said I would hate to have the authors catalog their own books.
Yeah, I can totally imagine the train wreck that would be.
Yeah,
I'm sure most of them would say there's no genre. My book doesn't fit in a genre.
Well, I get to Christy. I have news for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
it is surprisingly hard if you go to chat rooms where on those submission platforms. There's always just a huge list of artists just saying, I have no idea what genre my music is. And I'm sure if someone else heard it, they would instantly be able to put it in place. So it's clearly a common problem for people.
It's just perspective. It's hard when it's,
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's human nature.
Yeah, that's true. I hear this song in a very specific way, and yeah, it makes perfect sense that someone else would hear it in a totally different way. Yeah. Especially since I've heard it like at every single stage of the process. It actually started.
Right.
I was part of a 48-hour film competition, and I was writing the score for the movie, and like the music in the small hours was originated as like a part of that score that ended up not getting used. So it, like the original version is just like 4 minutes of instrumentalness, and then it slowly turned into something different. So it's really weird, like from where it started to where it ended up, and all the different influences that came into it before it finally got to the place where it was finished and out into the world.
Yeah, there's no wonder you can't put a genre to it. I mean, it makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, totally. And it's just, and I don't have a lot of experience in some of the stranger genres that maybe other people will hear this song as. So even when I was looking for places where I might find a home online, I was learning all these new genre names that I'd never heard before. And I thought that I was very well versed in the different genres of music, but no, it just goes on forever and ever, and it never ends.
It does. Which is great.
Oh yeah, it's a great thing.
It's great. It's like colors. I'm solid with like 5 different colors, and after that, I'm like bluish.
Right.
But
yeah, exactly.
People who love it. It does help, and it is one of the with music. There are lots of negatives with the internet, but there are a lot of positives too, and that is you can, when the match is made, it's made.
Yeah, and then it can become something much bigger than it ever could become without the internet. So yeah, it's pretty wonderful. I have no complaints about the internet and the music side of it, even though it has its issues. They're not really valid complaints. Definitely
no, it's just
more positive, than negative for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Well, now people will get the opportunity all next year, 12 shots to hear 12 new.
Definitely, it's going to happen. The first one, hopefully, will be either probably like the very end of January, and then hopefully the near the end of each month, we'll have a new one coming out. And then they will just go on for the rest of our lives.
The rest of your lives, that's perfect.
Until they run out of songs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, just till the end. That's, tell folks who are listening, where can they find you online? What are the best ways to find you?
Sure. So any streaming service, just search for Loopline. There's at least 2 different loop lines for the ones where loop line is 2 different words. It's not one word. And it's not weird like jazz, prog music. It's mostly pop, rock, indie type of music. So that's us. We're on Bandcamp. Most of our addresses are Loopline Music. So if you know Bandcamp, it's looplinemusic.bandcamp.com. On Twitter, on Instagram, we're at Loopline Music. Facebook also, I don't know what the full address is, but it's Loopline Music. That's the page. And we're on YouTube too. I think it's also Loopline Music. Pretty sure. We don't have a TikTok yet, and we probably never will, but maybe someday.
Never say never.
We can figure out like what to put on there. Then it can happen.
It's a lot of weird dance moves.
Lots of dancing for 10 seconds and then.
Yeah, exactly. That, or you lip sync something. That seems to be I shouldn't be that way. Anyways, yes. So that's, I'll make sure to provide those links into that. And I'm excited to hear all of the music for next year.
Oh, thank you so much. That's great to hear. And I'm excited to make it and actually put it out there because it's been too long. And putting out this song, Go Signs, last month, it was just kind of a reminder of how much fun it is to just work on music and put it out there and see what happens. So we're very motivated to make this happen.
Awesome. Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is great.
Thank you. We're hugely appreciative that you gave us the chance to come on here. So thank you very much. It's been really fantastic.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.